Hello, my friend Fred DeFalco. So glad you stopped by for Soul Stop Sign number 31. I want to thank you for encouraging me and getting me to continue this journey with you. It's because of your encouragement that this continues, and you've encouraged me to really push the envelope and to take this all the way to Russia, to stop at the beautiful Kremlin and write an open letter to President Putin with a carbon copy to all humanity. And that is to you, and it is a letter to myself for sure. Here we go. Dear President Putin, I write to you not as a politician, not as a critic, but as a fellow man, a would-be adopted brother. And if you allow, as a trusted soul advisor and confidant, not as an intellectual. I only have an eighth grade formal education, not as a scholar, but as someone whose first job after being sent away to juvenile jails 4 times was as a merchant seaman at 16 years old, followed by a garbage collector at 18. Then I married an adult entertainer with a 5-year-old daughter, and through life's twists and turns, climbed to the top in corporate business and entrepreneurial pursuits. But most importantly, I write from a genuine heart and a soul purified by fire, just like you, a fire I only began paying attention to at 62, nearly a decade ago. It took a 3-year series of back-to-back life wars and conflicts that forced me to pause, a divorce after 40 years of marriage, the loss of a $35 million real estate portfolio, the death of my 36-year-old daughter, Sandra Marie, to H1N1 flu, and 5 years of relentless litigation against banks and hedge funds, one being SoftBank, one of the largest in the world. Naturally, I lost that war and they took all the goods. I recently founded the 920 Society, a grassroots societal transformation community with an ambitious yet clear goal: world peace by 2035. I would be deeply honored if you would join me in this mission. I seek Twisdom, time and wisdom, truth and wisdom from all, and to learn from all. So together, Mr. Putin, President Putin, we can make the world peace a reality. Like you, I was the youngest child of 6, while you were the youngest of 3. Like you, I lost my 2 older brothers. Yours, Albert and Victor, were taken in infancy by external crisis, health, and political turmoil beyond their control. Mine, David and Joseph, were taken later through internal battles after years of turmoil, addiction, and imprisonment. David at 48 by suicide, Joseph at 52 from liver disease after serving 28 years of his life sentence in prison. You and I share more than coincidence. You were born October 7th, 1952. Me, September 29th, 1953. Both Libras by the world's measure, but shaped by childhood forces around us, forces we did not choose. I would love to meet and do something completely opposite of what most from different cultures and ideologies do: debate. Instead, I want to embrace our experiences, share soul to soul the journeys of two men in their early 70s, reflecting on lives rich with sensational and sometimes seemingly senseless experiences. My wife and I visited Russia in 1999, falling in love with its rich culture and deep history. I assume you are like me, finding that life now can start being understood backwards, but we still must live it forward. I would be honored to hear what your 70 years have taught you. I hope that one day we might spend personal time together sharing our stories as students and teachers of life, learning from one another's unique paths. I often say life feels much like an American football game. 4 quarters, drawing from my 3.5 quarters played so far. It's only in these last 30 months that everything has come together. All the life experiences, especially the major mindset and belief system letdowns. 35 years of dedication to theology and psychology left me wondering how so many of the systems in which I and billions of others placed our trust, couldn't save those I loved or even myself from self-sabotaging habits of thought and action. And perhaps the greatest minefield of all, midlife, the third quarter between 40 and 60 years old, a time for correction, not crisis. I call it the self-created crisis period of life for a reason. No amount of knowledge, effort, or status can activate intrinsic value. Instead of practicing Socrates' philosophy, the unexamined life is not worth living, we allow our fixed dogma of generational belief systems and attitudes to drive us to our insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. This is the period it happened to me and to you also. Another thing we have in common, you announcing your divorce after 30 years in 2013. I announced mine of 40 years in 2013. But fortunately, I stopped long enough to tear down the walls. I embraced Socrates, not to add more bricks to the prison, but to demolish it. I devoured every book of wisdom, not to gather more polished opinions, but to expose the fraud, my own fraud, I should add. I vowed to find the raw, unfiltered truth behind every illusion. Theology, psychology, ideology, all of them promised salvation, but left me empty, left my brothers broken, left families and nations circling the same drain of conflict. Why? Because belief systems unchecked become belief prisons. We lock ourselves inside, hand the key to others, and wonder why we feel powerless. These systems contradict the voice of our own soul intelligence, the voice that says you were never meant to live by someone else's script. The greatest tragedy is not what life does to us, but what we do to ourselves, and in turn, what we do to others, all in the name of beliefs that portray who we really are and why we were sent here to fulfill the 920 promise of peace and goodwill for all, first for ourselves, then to save others from destroying themselves and their personal world and the world around them. A few days after the birth of Addie Mae, my eighth granddaughter, I was meditating and thinking about life and time one morning, and dominating thought and inspiration of Addie's 18th birthday. It kept haunting me how it would come so quickly, and her gift should be celebrating her grandfather winning the 2035 Nobel Peace Prize. But my inner and outer life, personal and business, were deserving more of an international conflict prize. Without being aware of it, then all our life experiences and journeys should shape for each of us what I now call Twisdomology, much like Russia's own Nikolai and Fyodor, I don't want to mess up their last names, who faced the depths of human suffering and freedom, but refused to stop there. I too believe in transcending existential struggle, not with despair, but by activating the divine spark within us all, what I call the 920 hidden code. These philosophers, they emphasize that spiritual freedom and warned against external systems, whether political, religious, ideological, imprisoning the soul and suppressing our divine connection. Legendary Russian novelists who illuminated the inner battles of human suffering, freedom, and redemption, showing that true salvation is an internal journey, not dictated by system or circumstances. And when I work with the wealthy and the real highly successful, I see this all the time. It's still that internal battle. Twisdomology is not another ology to be argued in academic halls or wielded in circles of influence. It is the fusion of time and wisdom, as you will see in a moment, distilled in truth through exhaustive study, reflection, pain, triumph, for me and you, more than 70 years of lived experience. The secret key? Recognizing one simple reality. Time, effort, and status alone do not bring true wisdom. Only when we pause, reflect, and transcend the generational beliefs and programming we inherited does true wisdom emerge, and the 920 hidden code will get ignited. It all came together when I felt at the end of my game in life was over. Now every day feels like a personal Super Bowl. And the rings I collect hold more value than any gold or diamonds I've encountered in my lifetime. And it was in that time I was thinking it was the end of my game in life when that came to me in 2035, the Nobel Peace Prize for World Peace. Now, every day is that Super Bowl. This shift, this Twisdom experience was ignited at 11 p.m. the night before my 69th birthday. I stood next to my ex-wife's hospice bed. She was sent there earlier that day, prepared to die. We had been married for 40 years, divorced for 7, reunited for 2 more, only to fail again. And now here I was, 9 months later, I found myself at her bedside. But with the power of this Twisdom, something shifted that night. 5 days later, we walked out of that hospice together. We've been back together ever since until death do us part. Finally, in love, finally, all about and only true love and the 920 hidden code on fire daily. Twisdom had led me to one undeniable truth. You, me, every leader, every soul, we are all bound by the same internal hidden code, what I call the 920 hidden code. It is not found in strategy rooms, history books, religious or educational institutions, nor in the world's 4 Ps: power, positions, possessions, or pleasures. It's not written in policy or law. It cannot be dictated or suppressed by any personal or worldly will, because its will and our will are the same. That's why these love calls keep coming from the inside of all of us, no matter who we are. It is imprinted in our very DNA. It is the thumbprint of our soul intelligence calling each of us to peace and goodwill. But here's the paradox. Most of us never access it. We're caught in the machinery of programming, our nations, our cultures, our upbringing. Like I said, for me, not until I was 62 years old, we are programmed that peace and goodwill are for some, but not for all. Who is right becomes more important than what is right. If you had been raised by my parents, Mr. President, in my country, under my circumstances, you would be me. And if I had been raised by yours, I would be you. None of us escape the early scripts imprinted on our minds. We lead, strive, fight, and are consumed with finding satisfaction in what we want, only to be haunted by the deeper question: who would you be if you did not know who you were? That question posed in A Course in Miracles unravels everything. Most of us cannot answer it. It reveals the deeper truth. The deepest truth: most internal and external conflicts exist because we don't get what we think we want. But the greater truth is, we often don't even know what we want or what we're fighting for, what we are chasing, why we are chasing it, and what it will mean if we get it. Our beliefs and programming tell us who we are and what to desire, but it's a house built on shifting sands, and times always proves, as time always proves. And so history repeats itself in both our personal lives and in corporate lives and every other area of our life. Leaders rise, nations clash, wars erupt, all to prove something, only to discover too late. Time expires. The peace, the worth, the fulfillment we sought slips away, and we will return to where we came from: love, peace, and goodwill, to finally realize that when we were sent here, all we sought and fought for was already in us, and we were meant to leave it behind. Mr. President, you are a man of great power, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I honor and respect the authority you hold. But when I look at you, I see beyond the image painted by the media, politics, your followers, your enemies, and yourself. I see the real you, the one God made, not programming and circumstances. I see something much deeper, a man just like me and like so many male leaders, searching for that intrinsic value that was buried beneath belief systems, early programming, and societal expectations of you. A man whose soul, like mine, was starved and struggled to understand its own self and all of the whys of life, knowing there's something deeper and more meaningful beyond our thinking and knowledge, needing activation. More than just 70 to 100 years to be a robot here on planet Earth. And we're not alone. Think of King Solomon, who was granted so much, and yet in the last quarter of his life, he lost his way, not listening to that still small voice. There is more than just my appearance of who I am, and what and who is my accomplishment really for. All of us leaders and influencers who, before ever stepping onto the round battlefield we mistakenly call home, was inherently equipped with infinite love, peace, and goodwill. We don't have to fight for it. Just allow it to happen. I always say uncover it and suppose to leave it behind us all. Yet, like all of us, those hidden treasures remain buried while we chase after them, fight for them, war for them, believing they can be found out there somewhere among all the peas we gather. But those peas can quietly turn any one of us into a well-dressed, well-fed pig without the 920 activation of true worth. Pig, pursuits of power, illusions of importance, gratifications of gain. If I can only get so much, if I can only get a little more. Externally polished, carrying ourselves well, but inwardly a starved soul, leaving behind unnecessary mud and stench for ourselves and others, when we were designed not for pig farms, but for gardens. I was 62-year-old pig before I discovered the unactivated 920 code, before I finally recognized the unadulterated intrinsic value of the inner child who had never truly been allowed to be one. That intrinsic worth had been buried beneath decades of striving, hard work, searching, insanity, failure, successes, and yes, wealth. All of it, it's alike. It's intriguing how a variety of wisdom traditions emphasize the importance of returning to a childlike state, a concept that transcends cultural and spiritual boundaries. It's remarkable how long and what it takes for us alpha macho male leaders, especially fathers, to finally pause long enough to pay attention to the unactivated 920 code within us. You and I both know of a world leader who recently said, after surviving a bullet to the head, something inside me was finally activated. Sir, I see in you me, and I see me in you, my dear friend. Everything we truly want, everything that will endure and etch our names in history, not as conquerors, but as men of unmatched wisdom, is already in us waiting. I'm going to throw this in there. Please, let's get together. Some will criticize my outreach. They will point to your ideologies, to your policies, human casualties, but respectfully, many of the world's celebrated leaders, educators, clergy, and influencers have caused even more severe casualties, emotional, psychological, spiritual, that ripped silently through generations, all stemming from the same root: forgotten intrinsic worth, lost soul intelligence, early programming. Wars, whether personal or national, always have the same source: believing something is wrong, when in truth, the only thing wrong are the belief systems convincing us that something is wrong. It is only when the 920 hidden code is activated within that peace and goodwill finally take their rightful place, not as slogans, but as living truth. This is not about surrendering nations or ideologies, a surrender not of land and ideology, but of the illusions that told us something was missing, something was broken. It is about surrendering to false self, the identity crafted during those first 7 years, and listening to that still small inner voice that speaks when the world is silent. It is all about soul, surrendering ourselves unto love. Sir, I think you would agree, if all of us currently on the planet we mistakenly call home, had all our titles, all our history, all our P's stripped away, we would recognize the one and only fact: we are all the same, under the same sky for a very short time. Why all the struggle? Why all the conflicts, personal and societal? Twisdom is not a theory, it is a personal freedom, not just freedom for ourselves, but for every person, every generation to come. I used to subscribe to the religious traditions that teach the idea of a universal fall and evil, that humanity is collectively bound by Adam's sin. But when it comes to universal redemption, that same collective reality suddenly disappears and theologians debate it. The ego thrives on separation and exclusion, insisting that humanity's salvation, peace, and goodwill is for some, but not all, as the beautiful Russian philosophers that I quoted so well write about. The truth, the 920 code, peace and goodwill for all, was never a suggestion. It was an announcement from heaven, a reality established by love, written on parchments and all human hearts as a divine covenant to all mankind. Love, peace, and goodwill, an external, internal, and eternal written edict and guarantee to happen on earth as in heaven, where spirit and truth rule over all hearts and souls, not rules and belief systems that empower ego and illusion. That still small voice of intrinsic love and worth, and there is so much more inside me I have not activated yet. Just that still small voice that says it to all of us, that there's love and worth in there somewhere, and there's so much more inside me I have not activated yet. Yet both of us have been told and sold the idea that a universal bad is real, but a universal good is impossible. The 920 promise is our birthright, sir. Let's activate the code, cash in on peace and goodwill for all, beginning with our personal peace. We all love the songs about peace and goodwill, the man in the mirror, we are the world, but we walk away from the mirror, pick up a magnifying glass, and forget all the songs. There is no selective grace. At this point, I will take the liberty granted by the 920 hidden code of peace and goodwill for all and your good nature that I see every time I see you and address you by the name your close friends call you, Vova. Not out of disrespect, sir, I promise you that, and honor that's allotted to you, but out of what I really feel. Dear Vova, if you will not accept my invitation and adopt me as your younger brother, I look forward to when we both arrive back to our real and permanent home, to eternal wisdom, love, peace, and goodwill, where we all will have an eternally great time together. I can make you that solemn promise. Blessings, my dear friend. P.S. History has proven, time has proven, wisdom has proven, the 920 code, peace and goodwill survive all things. Everything and everyone fades from the earth every 90 to 100 years, and all our personal, internal, external, societal crises and conflicts dissipate into our graves. I should have wrote. Our world keeps getting better and more peace and goodwill than in any time of all recorded history when you look at truth and the real facts. How interesting, isn't it? Few of us are granted more than 75 or 85 years to activate the 920 code, to release the intrinsic value we were sent here with. My friends and family often laugh when I tell them, what are we stressing over today? It wasn't a concern 90 years ago and won't be 90 years from now. It's all an illusion, projection, and programming. The time is now, Mr. President. Let's walk into a new chapter for your life and my life together, as men, as brothers, as souls, to shorten the time for our world, waiting for universal peace and goodwill for all to be fulfilled, hopefully in our lifetime, if not as soon as possible after we both are back home. A world you and I will both be leaving in the next 20 or 30 years, perhaps even sooner. If you will grant me the honor of meeting you in person, it could mean the world to both of us and accelerate the activation of the 9-2 code of peace and goodwill, allowing it to spread and dominate more of the world sooner rather than later, so we might enjoy witnessing it together. If a meeting in person or over Zoom isn't possible, I invite you to at least join my Facebook group. Let's demonstrate to the world that it's possible to communicate without the need to convince or convert. Currently, only 1,000, but growing to 9.2 million by 2035. 9,200,000 Twisdomologists is what I'm looking for and hoping for. With deepest respect, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, I really do. I hope we have that beautiful opportunity to meet together. Thank you for listening. And for those that was carbon copied, dear humanity, I hope that this resonates with who you truly are. For a copy of this, I'll put it in wherever I post this, and it'll be posted on YouTube, the link to the PDF. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Bye-bye.